Let's talk herd.
There's a lot of people now who feel like riding at all is...
Yes.
And I understand that, because I do think there is a lot of riding that's very forceful, and there's a lot of riding that's damaging. But I'm not really one for making rules and deciding that we shouldn't be riding horses, or that we shouldn't be even we shouldn't be riding with a bit, or we shouldn't. I mean, there's obviously things that feel more comfortable to me and feel more preferable. And, I love it that when the horses are able to live in a herd, and I love it when they can be, not going in stables and barefoot. But it does, I feel that we kind of go from the frying pan to the fire, because we create these rules, like you mustn't ride now because riding's bad. And, it just, it makes it difficult. What do you feel about that?
Well, Gideon sometimes downloads messages to me that he has me write up in papers. Wow. Okay. And one of them is about putting horses on a pedestal. He says, in all capital letters, he said, you have to put it in capital letters. Stop doing that. He said, we're not supreme beings. You're not a supreme being. We're just all beings here on the planet, and we can learn from one another. And I've tried all these different things with Gideon. I've tried him bitless. He's good bitless. That's not an issue. But he actually told me through an animal communicator he prefers a bit. Yeah. Because he said the metal actually amplifies the energetic signals. And the whole electrical part of our connection. He likes that. Some horses don't like that. He doesn't like a noseband. Some horses feel better in a noseband. He's barefoot, but he's also worn shoes. It all depends on the individual horse. If a horse invites you onto their back, then ride them. They're asking you to be there. If a horse won't approach the mounting block or keeps moving away, then don't get on. Yeah. Something's not right. Pay attention and figure out what it is. Yeah. So that's my take on it, Camille. I'm with you. There's no hard and fast rule other than please do your best at all times. And pay attention and listen. Be receptive.
Yeah. Yeah. That is it's so powerful, and to be honest, it's so much fun to do it like that, because you're in the present moment. So maybe today, there's one mare that I have who's she's a kind of dreamy kind of mare. She's really a unicorn. She's just kind of not, we don't really ride, because it was so challenging for her. And anyway, I'm going through a different process with the herd. But it just happened that this one day when I was in the arena with her, I just felt like she would enjoy having that feeling on her back. And so I did get on her, and she was really, really good about it. She really enjoyed the feeling. And it's just like you say, just being in the moment is such a wonderful place to be. It's so... anything can really happen if we just let ourselves listen and just kind of not push. And I think sometimes we don't let ourselves do that because we're worried that, nothing will happen. And, one of the things that I'm learning to let go of in this life is just being too much of a perfectionist and putting too much pressure on myself about getting it right. And, it has to be this perfect way. But I do always feel that I rebalance when I get into the herd and I just listen to them. So, and everything just becomes clear when I do that. Mm-hmm. So even though I'm worrying about, maybe not doing enough or not kind of pushing when I should push and not, making it too too pure energetically in a way, then that just all goes away. So I just trust where we are and what we're doing, and because I know that it just feels right. It just feels right when you're just in that connection.
Mm-hmm.
And it might change tomorrow. Karamba might decide that she doesn't, that she wants to work with equipment again, or because she's very sensitive to things. Like, she sees when I ride the horse that's here for livery, she watches and she sees that. And you can see that she feels quite fascinated by it, but also quite challenged by it. Just the whole idea that he could be under any kind of, I don't know if the word control, but she's very freedom orientated, because she did say to me once that the reason that we couldn't use a bridle was because how on earth could she get away? And that's how she sees it. So that's just where we are. But it just feels, what feels so amazing to me is just to be able to hear that, to hear her saying that. And then to hear another horse saying that they want, they would like to be, and like you say, just to hear that they would like a bit, or to hear that it's just that I find really, it's just so, and it's just, it's joy, isn't it? It's just so joyful and so unlimiting.
It is. It's a constant process of discovery.
Yeah.
Just discovering and in the moment all the time. And yeah, I mean, there can't be any perfection, because we're here on planet Earth and we're in human bodies, and there is no perfection. There is balance, there's awareness, there's connection, and that shifts from moment to moment. Yes.
So what do you see as do you have a vision or a dream that you feel that is unfolding, or do you feel like you're just in a place of potential and that there's nothing in particular? Where do you feel that you are now with your life, essentially?
I feel like I'm in transition now, because I have no idea what the divine has planned for me, but Gideon will probably be my last horse, and he's 29 now. And I have not been able to ride in the last 3 years for various reasons, and so I'm missing that greatly. However, I get such joy out of teaching, and I would love to be able to reach more people to help them understand better what the horses need from us. So I have like 7 books started, but the timing isn't right yet. And so I'd like to work on those more, or who knows what other kind of technological wonders will come forward that might allow these concepts to become more widespread, like podcasts.
Yeah.
So I'm just available. I love to share. But I am in a bit of as I said, a transition zone. I'm not sure how. And I've learned the value of surrender, with a capital S, and truly letting the divine handle the details, and staying in a place of quiet expectancy that I will be led, and I just have to pay attention to the subtle signals that come through and follow those breadcrumbs wherever they lead.
Yeah. I love that. What I call at the moment, what I call just the receptive mode, like just getting into that place where you're just willing to receive, and you're trusting that this moment has something amazing for you, and you're just open to it. And because it took me a while to let go of the fact that I had to figure out how it was going to be, and I had to understand I had to kind of work out the parameters. And I think the horses really helped me a lot with that. And we just don't need to know that, and we can't know that because we've only really got a very limited perspective. So in letting go like that and just receiving, you're allowing every possibility. You're allowing the perfect patterning or the perfect unfolding for you to reach you, really, because we can't possibly see all the pathways and everything that that's out there. And so it's amazing. I just kind of remind myself every day to do a bit of that, getting back into that zone of that all I have to do is receive. And it's not a selfish thing at all, because then you become a channel and you're allowing so much to come through you. It's not really about you. You're not blocking it anymore, that's all. So you kind of become a tool, or, an expression of source. And it is really wonderful. And I think a lot of it as well for me has just been, I really need to trust that people will hear these things when they're ready, and not kind of, because I tend to feel, why don't people understand this about riding? And, why do they take so long to understand? And then I tend to sort of, create this idea that people aren't interested. But it took me, I don't know, it takes 20 years, doesn't it, to 30? It takes a lifetime, really, to understand.
A lifetime.
Yeah, so it's really about not worrying about other people and whether they're catching on or not, just to kind of be the light that you are, really, which sounds a bit trite, but it's kind of that. It's just
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So your books,
let that light shine brightly.
Yeah.
And
so did you mean that you've started 7 different books, or you have a series?
There are 7 different things. Yes.
Wow, that's exciting.
Because it's there's the Gray Goose's story, of course.
Yeah.
And then there's Gideon's book about his philosophy and messages. And then there's my whole learning process with starting from the beginning with a stallion, which I had never done before. And there was no guidance for me because I didn't like the way stallions are being handled at all.
Yeah.
And I knew there could be another way. And then there's my life and philosophies, and there's more. There's a story about my daughter and moving past great tragedy in one's life, and so that I've started all those. I trap information in those different areas so that the books can come together when the timing is right.
I was just going to ask about your daughter. What would you say that you've become through that experience?
Well, a whole different person, that's for sure. A very different person. So Andy was, for your listeners if they don't know, and my daughter, Andrea, but she preferred Andy. We were like soul sisters. And in her first year, in her break between her first and second year of college, she disappeared. Okay. So I won't go into all the details, but essentially she was kidnapped and not kidnapped, abducted. That's the word I'm looking for. Abducted and murdered, and her body was just thrown out in the woods, where it took 4 months before a hunter literally tripped over her bones. Okay. So I was so grateful to have resolution. There are so many parents out there whose children disappear and they never know what happens to them. So it was awful. And I mean, there really aren't words to describe that level of darkness and despair. However, through that, and it took 3 years to come out of what I call the gray zone, and it took another 3 years to decide I wanted to live, and that there was a reason why I was still alive. I also had a near-death experience in a terrible car accident, and I went to where Andy is now, and that experience was so beyond words to describe, amazingly awesome. I did not want to come back. I was made to come back. I got pretty upset about that for a good year. But having worked through all that, Andy has been able to show me just how connected we still are.
Yeah.
How it's so hard to find words for this, because it goes so far beyond language, our ability to speak.
Yeah.
But the openness that she has led me to, the peace that she has led me to,
that's incredible.
Trust in my own self and connection with God, all of those things are a profound part of me now.
Yeah.
So that, it's taken me 74 years to get to this place, but I've always had confidence in myself, but not in relation to other people.
Okay.
I've always trusted that inner voice, and I've done what the inner voice directed, but people didn't understand it, but it worked out, but people still didn't understand it. Now it doesn't matter to me what people think. It doesn't matter to me what they say. I know without a shadow of a doubt that the path that I am on is the path I need to be treading, and that the information that comes through me in that way is to be trusted. So I'm a way more peaceful person in a really, there's just nothing about peace that one could ever be upset about. People say, oh my God, aren't you lonely? Aren't you bored? Aren't you? And I'm like, no, because it's a life that is rich with input and finding the goodness in everything. Wow, it just helps you relax so much, Yeah, so I would say that's Andy's death. I was going to say has been an incredible blessing. It took me a while to find it, but she is where she wants to be, and she has been a great teacher.
Wow. And how long would you say it took you to connect with her, to feel her there with you after it happened?
Well, it took a while. If other people were feeling her, other people were giving me messages from her, and I just felt completely cut off. But there was one, July 4th was the day she died, disappeared and died, and she always comes through to me on her anniversaries. July 4th when she disappeared, and November 1st when her bones were found, and often on her birthday in December. She comes through clearly. But what she finally got through, and I'm trying to think when that was, it was at least, I would say, 6 to 7 years before she finally got through to me that the reason I could not connect with her was the feeling of loss that I had. That I had to get past the feeling of loss, and I had to get past an unconscious, until that moment, thought. Wait, now I have to find the words for this again. Okay, let me put it this way. Worry and fear, she said, are the biggest blocks to being able to connect with folks that are on the other side. fear that they might not come, fear that there is a fear when time goes by, because it's been quite a while now, 91 to 2022. That's a long time. I realized that I was starting to forget the details of being with her, and that caused such great sadness, and there was a fear there again of losing her.
Yeah.
And she said, well, I am not the person I was when you died. I am a very different being, and, you know, open and receive me as I am. And it was like, whoa, okay, that was a biggie. So when I began to view her as she is now, as view meaning feel her and see her, then everything started to shift. So I can just reach out and connect with her if I want to now. Yeah. Sometimes she's not available, sometimes she's busy, but she gets back to me.
Wow. Yeah.
So she has taught me so much about connecting on a level that is, you know, I guess we call it telepathy, or I don't know what it's called these days, but connecting on the ether band in the airwaves with those who are not close to us in physical proximity, or those that have moved on.
Yeah.
So now I help other people connect and bring messages through. She's taught me so much.
Yeah, it's a huge thing for us to realize that almost the most challenging, tragic occurrences, or, you know, events that happen in our lives can be the biggest opportunity to grow, like to do things that we would, or to achieve something with it, or become something that we just could never have been without it. So it's amazing to hear about that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Just, yeah. I mean, I haven't experienced that with a person, but I've had similar, I don't know if I can say similar. I've had experiences of losing animals that I was very close to, and it's unbelievable how they are, like, I think we are bigger than we are in a body when we're not limited by a body.
Yes.
I don't think we really understand.
Yes.
And even us, like, we have such a greater part of ourselves that, like, there's only a little bit of us that's coming into this body right now to kind of grow in certain ways and expand. But that other world is just phenomenal.
It is. Gideon is not in the greatest of health. Well, although he's getting better now that I found some proper supplements for him, but he's 29, so he's coming into his latter years, and I just can't imagine life without him. And he just, every single time I start to get sad, he's like, Kim, I will be here even more than I am now, just on that other level. He says, I'm not leaving you. Our connection will be even deeper once I leave this body. So he's been saying it enough over the last year that I am, my mind, my heart and body believe him, but my mind was having a hard time. But it's beginning to really trust that now, so that it's not such a deep sorrow whenever I touch that subject. But so yes, we are all so much bigger out of the physical shell that we inhabit.
And he probably knows exactly when that you're going to be ready for him to go. And it's just, that's another amazing subject, the process of, the process of leaving your body. And I think for us with animals, we're moving into a phase now where we can start to trust that they know how to do that, and that we don't have to feel like we have any responsibility for moving them on, or, avoiding suffering because it's a sort of human construct. And yeah, that's a whole other subject in a way, but it's very related to this multi-dimensional existence that we have. Yeah.
And some animals do want to be assisted, but they let us know. They let us know clearly.
Yes. Absolutely, yeah. It's true, because I had an experience with my dear friend who is a pig, and I was really upset at the time because I thought that I had what's the word? Kind of forced it on her, and she went at the same time with her husband, her partner, and but yeah, but I'd arranged it, so I was so upset because I felt like I hadn't listened, or I hadn't understood, or because she seemed to struggle in leaving her body. And then she came to me that night, and it was the most unbelievable feeling of like being held and being embraced. And at first I was pushing it away because it's like, you're making it up, but it was her. And it sounds a bit ridiculous, and I've said this before, it sounds crazy because when you put it into words, but she wasn't a pig anymore, she was a bear now. And she showed me that she was this grizzly bear. She'd always lived this incredibly wild life, and she'd never met a human. And her soul had decided to embody into this pig body, into an intensive farm. And she wanted to be she just wanted to understand humans and to have a life where she was close to a human. But she was so delighted to be back in that body that she just couldn't express how joyful and delighted she was. So that whole dimension of the horrible physical death and everything just meant nothing. It wasn't about that. And she just had so many wonderful things to say about how I had to keep going and keep going with energy and sharing. And it was just an amazing experience. And I haven't felt her again as strongly as that, because it was strange because I just knew it was so her, and yet it wasn't her. It was her bear self and as a pig, she'd always felt kind of borderline, like you really were careful around her. You didn't just push her boundaries, or like you felt that there was this immense power in her and energy. And that was obviously because she was like just in a pig body and for a while. And it was just the experience of just feeling her soul like that was just incredible. And I don't think you can't really give that to someone else. You just have to, experience it for yourself. And then you realize, how little we really kind of know about things, and that there's so much more, and there's always so much more than we think there is around the corner. And that's what's so amazing about life. And
amen.
Yeah. Yeah.
What an experience. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was. And I've had that a few times with animals that have gone, coming back, and almost like a reassurance, like, we're here, and everything's good, and and that just, maybe that's just because that helps me, and they know that. And and it's just, but it really has convinced me, beyond anything else, that there's definitely, this is just, part of the experience. And I'm not, so I'm kind of looking forward to experiencing that myself. And so it's been really amazing talking to you. Do you have anything? Can you think of anything else that you'd like to say or add?
I think just for the listeners, please be patient with yourselves. The horses are very forgiving one of the things so many people experience when they begin to learn, as I'm sure you have also experienced, Camille, is that they feel so deeply sorrowful for the way they rode or interacted with their horse before, and they can get caught up in remorse for that. And I always reassure them, no, the horses, they just forgive, and that's it. They're done.
Absolutely.
Done. We're ready to move on. We're delighted that you're where you are now and you're willing to learn, and yeah, you may have spent 20 years learning to ride the other way, which didn't work so well for us, but wow, here you are now, learning to ride in a way or handle us, be with us, work with us in a way that is completely different, and we're just so grateful for that. Yeah. So trust that.
Yeah.
And be kind, not only to others, but to yourselves.
Yeah, that's a wonderful message. Yeah. And I agree 100% with that. Yeah. So beautiful.